Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast with global sales trainer and professional speaker, Lois Koffi. Each week, it is her goal to share inspiration and education for you to be, do, have the best health and wealth and wisdom for your life.
Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sailesh, I see my friends in India have already joined us. So we're super excited to have you guys here for a special edition of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. My name is Lois Koffi. If you've never met me before, I'm a sales trainer, coach, entrepreneur who really is passionate about you living your best life. And that's why I called my show Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. Each week, I bring to you guys health experts, wealth experts, and people who have specific knowledge, and I call it wisdom, to help you grow your business, grow yourself, and really, truly, again, live your best life. So today, I'm super honored to have a special guest. Normally, I do these live shows on Fridays, but I have with me my mentor, Brian Moran, who is the co-author of the New York Times bestselling book, The 12-Week Year. And if you've never heard of it, you're definitely going to hear about it today. And we're really excited to have you here, Brian. I'm going to let you turn it over to you and allow you to just share with us your story, your background, and a little bit more about why you do what you do with the 12-week year.
Great. Well, Lois, thanks for having me. It's good to spend some time with you and your community. So a little background on me. I came up through corporate America. I started with UPS, paying my way through college, got promoted with them, decided I wanted out of Michigan, wanted to be in Southern Cal, moved there, got in with PepsiCo, advanced with them, and then ended up at a consulting firm and ultimately got an offer from one of our clients to be vice president of sales and service for them. But I had this inkling to be on my own, to be an entrepreneur. So when I got an opportunity, we moved back to Michigan. And I got involved in a startup company in health services and still own a chunk of that today. And I'm on the board, but my job was to set it all up. And so we do on-site medical surveillance. And I was doing that and I got the company going and I got things running, but it wasn't where my passion was. My passion was really about coaching and training and teaching and speaking. And so a friend of mine wanted to start a consulting firm and wanted me to be part of it. And so I said, sure. And as we got started, he had 5 kids under 5. So about 6 months in, he's like, I got to go get a real job. I'm like, okay, see ya. And I kept going because it's really what I love to do. And it was a great fit. And then right after 9/11, I got a call from a guy I knew from the consulting firm we both worked at. I had met him there. He was from Michigan originally. He was in Reno. I was in Southern Cal, and we'd done some projects together. And he was just coming back from Europe, and my business was starting to take off. So it worked out great. So that's where Michael Lennington joined me, and he and I co-authored the book and, are still business partners today. So we fast forward to today, everything we do at the 12-week year is designed to help people perform at their best and get more of what they want faster. So yeah, that's kind of the short version of my background.
I know you've lived a long life and not a long life. I'm not making you sound old, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
I can relate. Like I always joke, I'm 42. I turn 43 next week. I have no shame in sharing my age. And I feel like when I tell people my story, they're like, how old are you again? Because I've gone through
Lois,
a lot.
Let me warn you, it goes from 43 to 60 like that. So it goes fast.
But the good news is now I have the 12-week year. So I'm actually, what is that in dog years? Like in 12-week years, I'm going to live to be 1,000. And that's what I love really quickly for those of you who haven't read the book. And why did I get so passionate about it? Why did I become a 12-week year certified trainer, right? Because that's a bigger commitment. I went all in. I found the book 4 years ago, guys. And I loved it. I'm going to let Brian share more about the science behind it because I have a fitness background. I'm an Ironman triathlete. So when I read the book, it had been about 6 years into motherhood. I didn't have 5 under 5, but even just 2 under 5, or around, it was like 6 at that time. I was just like, there was a lot of fog. Like my productivity had gone down in life, and I was feeling scattered, becoming a mom and going through this journey in business and doing volunteerism, and just, I was kind of like spread a little bit or a lot bit too thin. Right. And so when I read your book 4 years ago, I'm not kidding, guys, the next 2 12-week years, which is 6 months to equivalency, I got way more done. Like my productivity just shot through the roof. My income went up, my focus, my clarity of purpose, just everything magnified. And I can't give you exact numbers, but I felt like in those 6 months, I got more done than I had in those previous. And it really resonated with me, Brian, because it's all about the science of periodization. So can you share more about that science and why people can get so much done at a high level with what your book teaches?
Yeah, you bet. So it's interesting because Michael and I have been working with the fundamentals of execution and high performance, because what we realized is, look, it's not about ideas. It's not about strategy. It's not about resources. The thing that limits most folks is a lack of execution. And so when we looked at what's the value we're going to bring to the marketplace, we were clear it was around helping our clients execute more effectively. Because if they just did more of what they already know without learning anything new, right, they'd make more money, they had better relationships, they'd have better health. And so as we were working with those fundamentals, a client of ours was into cycling. And this was back when Lance was cycling and winning the Tour de France and the U.S. Postal Team. And he was talking about periodization. And I remember that from college, from bodybuilding. And so Michael and I took a look at that again and said, you know what, that has applicability for what we're doing. So periodization as an athletic training process began in the 70s in Eastern Europe, initially with Olympic athletes, designed to create breakthrough performance. And it works so well that it's used in most sports today. But let me give you an example. In cycling, for instance, the way they used to train would be like Monday would be a light ride, Tuesday would be sprints, Wednesday would be hill climbing, Thursday would be road, that type of thing. And they'd kind of go through that each week, and they'd have that routine. With periodization, they take one of those disciplines, like climbing, and they'd work on it every day for a period of time, 4 to 6 weeks typically. And then they'd go to the next discipline. And so what they're doing with that is they're raising the baseline physically and emotionally to handle a higher load. And then they'd cycle through again and again. So it's really, we looked at that and we said, okay, how do we apply that outside of athletics? And what we took from that was really this issue of focus and concentrated effort for a shorter period of time, and then rest, recover, and do it again. And so as we were working with our clients, we did, Lois, what most people do, probably what your community does, right? When we set goals, we help them set annual goals, and we broke them down quarterly and monthly and weekly. And we got good results, but we didn't get what they were capable of. And so that's when we started to look at different timeframes and take the fundamental concepts of periodization and how do we apply that in a setting outside of athletics, in a personal setting, in a business setting. And so that's really where the 12-week year was born. And when we married that with the fundamentals, it was like supercharging everything. It gave a sense of urgency, a healthy sense of urgency to the work, where there's a hard line in the sand every 12 weeks. It was long enough that you could make profound progress, but near enough where you didn't lose sight of the deadline. There was just so many things around that just made it so effective. And what's interesting about that is it challenged a notion that no one even had thought about, right? Everyone always planned. They did annual planning, and because that's what we were taught to do. Even in public companies where it's quarterly, that quarterly planning that they do is still in the context of an annual number. If we hit the annual number, we're fine. And the problem we saw with that was just the opportunity to procrastinate and put things off, even for the most disciplined people. If I've got to get there by the end of January, that's a lot of time. So I don't have to be really focused today. And that's the difference between people operating at what they're capable of and less than that. And so the 12-week year creates this healthy sense of urgency and really kind of calls you out to be your best day in and day out.
I love that. Yeah, because you teach, and please correct me, I'm certified, but you are the master. So in a 12-week year, the goal, guys, is to get more done in 12 weeks than the average person does in 12 months. I mean, look at New Year's resolutions. Why do they fail by February 1st? Is because everyone, you talked about, I wrote this down, physically and emotionally. We are an evolving soul being of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. You cover all of this stuff in the book. And to make such a hard shift and change when it comes to annualized thinking, also known as New Year's resolutions to a lot of
That's right.
everyday people, right? That's just too much, really all at once. And then you think you have forever. So you talk about in the 12-week year, one day in the mindset, you want to think of one day as 1 week. 1 week is like 1 month. And then the 12 weeks is like a year, right? Can you speak to that a little bit more so they understand?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about 12 weeks as a year, there aren't 4 of those in the year. That's annualized thinking. There's this 12-week year followed by the next. And so if your year really is 12 weeks, then it brings a lot more importance to this week, this day, which is really where execution happens. It doesn't happen monthly and quarterly and semi-annually. It really happens day by day, week by week. And so with the 12-week year, one of the things it causes you to do, because it's 12 weeks, is to really focus in. One of the fundamental flaws in annualized planning that people don't even realize is that they take on too much because they think, well, I got 12 months. So I can have all these goals and all these tactics and all these actions, and they start out overwhelmed. They go through the year diffused. There's very little progress made. And so one of the fundamental tenets of the 12-week year is really focusing in on a few things. Let's be great at a few things versus mediocre at many. And the reason we can do that is because we're not trying to plan for 12 months. We're planning for 12 weeks. At the end of that time, you're going to come back and you're going to look at what worked and what didn't work, where were assumptions on, where were they off, and you're going to lock and load and go again. So it's a way of operating. There's a cadence to it that really is a healthier cadence. And it's not like we're saying, hey, you're going to take everything you would do in 12 months and try and cram it into 12 weeks. That's not what we're saying. We're saying accomplishing more in 12 weeks than most do in 12 months. And it's not necessarily by doing more. It's just about focusing more consistently on the most important things.
I love it. It's you remind me of Jim Rohn's quote, major in the minor things. That's what I loved about the book as well, as it did have me focus. As an athlete, I had to focus on the run, then I had to focus on the swim, then I had to focus on the bike, and then I was really present. So that's why, having just 2 personal and 1 professional, or 1 personal and 2 professional goals, and making them specific, all of those things that you talk about in the book, or that just resonated with me and helped me focus so much. Can you share more about that focus? I know we're not going to share any images on the screen, and I talk a lot about quote unquote time management, but it's really more choice management and time blocking. So can you share more about that, and maybe even think about this whole COVID thing, this new normal? Now people, they're not maybe driving to the office, but they're at home. They have kids who are distance learning. They're juggling all the things. So have you coach differently with that going on in regards to time blocking?
Yeah. So one of the things you got to remember is to be effective with your time, there's some things you need to have in place first, right? The first thing you need to know is, what do you want? That's a vision question, really. If you're not clear on that, you can't be effective with your time. The next thing is, what matters most? That's the planning question. The next thing is, are you doing it? That's the execution question. The next thing is it working? That's the scorekeeping question. So we just went through 4 of the 5 disciplines, the 5th discipline being time use. And I would argue pretty vehemently that you have to have the other 4 in place to really be effective with time use. And so when we have those pieces in place, now it gives us some context to think about, okay, I know what matters most. How do I structure my time to focus in on that? Because there will always be more to do than you have time to do it.
Right.
And if we're not clear on that, then what happens is we take the day as it comes, and now we're not in control of our destiny at all. We're not in control of our results because We're just taking the day as it comes. When I know what matters most, and I know how that leads to the life I want to live and what's important to me, and now I can begin to block my time more effectively. And with people working at home, and so many of the kids not going back to school, it's virtual, right? You've got to create new routines. And so I was just working on my model work week today, looking at, okay, what are the quality outputs that matter most for me in my role in my company? And how do I work my week so that I have time for that stuff more than anything else? So it's that scenario of, let's start with the big rocks. Those are the big rocks. And then I'm going to let the rest of the day kind of fill in, knowing that I'm not going to get to everything. Which is different than the way most people work. Most people work kind of the way they save, right? If there's any money left over at the end of the month, I'll save and invest, and there's never any money. So same thing with time, right? I've got to start with what matters most, let the rest fill in. And with kids now, I mean, you've saved the commute time, but with kids at home, there's lots of interruptions. So you need to plan for that. You need to understand you need margin in your day. There's going to be things that come up and happen, but the way I win the week, honestly, is by executing what's in my plan for this week. So regardless of what blows up, the kids can't get online. There's a problem with that. It pulls me out of the game for hours, whatever. Doesn't matter really if I get the things done that I need to get done this week from an activity standpoint, right? I don't control the outcomes. I control the actions. So that's why that planning piece is so important, and it's critical to get tactical in the plan. But if I get those things done this week, I had a great week, because if I do that enough, the results will come. Because that's all I really control are the actions. Yeah. So blocking out time for those, and not getting too anxious or really spun around the axis on, boy, I'm getting pulled here, I'm getting pulled here. That's part of the new realities for people. How do I still get the key things done that I need to get done this week?
That's so good. That's so good. And I put this on the screen, guys, if you can see it right now. Comment below with questions. If you do have questions, I know that Brian would love to hear from you. And that's why I do this live, so you guys are a part of this as well as me. When you talked about something in the book that are known as buffer blocks. If you've never read the book, that was a huge thing for me, Brian, because, oh my gosh, in this day and age, and I can only imagine for you, but I'm finding it more and more, the more people that know me, the more people that want my attention, they want my time. They can find me on Facebook. There's email, there's text, there's WhatsApp, there's Voxer. And your buffer blocks really almost, I think I'm going to be a little, crazy here in saying this maybe, but it saved my life, because as a mom, I was becoming, frenetic. And then when I had all these people say, hey, did you get my email? Hey, did you get this? Hey, did you check, that? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like I didn't have control of my time and energy, but that was my own fault, right? I set those buffer blocks in place, 2 times a day, checking email, checking some of those apps, and the rest of it was productive, outbound, focus time. Can you speak more on why that's so valuable?
Yeah, it's really easy just to have the day consume you. And so again, especially if we're not working from a tactical plan and those other pieces aren't in place. So buffer blocks are designed to deal with the interruptions and the low level things. And so we block out certain times during the day when we're going to go through our email, when we go through our voicemail, when we're going to take some of those drop-ins and things like that. Because if we don't do that, what happens is, and we've all had this, right? You get to the end of your day and you look back and all you've done is dealt with everybody else's stuff. And none of it moves the needle, because it's not the important stuff that's beeping your inbox and knocking on your door. It's always
not making you money. It's not making you money necessarily.
It's not making you more successful. And so, that concept of time blocking is, we're going to block out time for the stuff that matters most. We're also going to block out time for this other stuff that I got to weed through. And that's what we call a buffer block. And it might be 15 minutes. It might be an hour. It might be once a day. It might be 3 times a day. It depends on how much of that stuff you have. But what it allows you to do is mentally know that, okay, I have a time slotted where I can deal with that. I don't have to check my email every 10 minutes. I don't have to answer the phone every time it rings, because I know there's certain times of the day I return calls. And and I deal with emails and I deal with that stuff. So it allows me to be more on purpose throughout the other parts of the day. David Allen, if you know David Allen at all, he talks about open commitment loops, and it's the things we hold in our head that after we get a couple of them start to weigh us down. And that's why buffer blocks are so effective, because otherwise there's this notion of, oh, I got to check my email. I got to get to this. And that can also become great avoidance activity, right? I was supposed to do something strategic that may be a little uncomfortable for me. So I better go check my email. And of course there's, 50 emails in there that I can spend hours dealing with. So those buffer blocks are really critical in terms of me taking control of my day, making sure I have time for the important stuff, and yet cleaning up some of that little stuff that can bury you if you don't have a way of dealing with it.
That's so good. Yeah, because I remember that was why your book came at the right time, because when I was in real estate back in the day, I call it BK, before kids. I had, even on my voicemail, it said, I'll return your calls today between 11 and 12 and 4 and 5. And now when I read your book 4 years ago, I implemented that in my email. The only thing is now Facebook doesn't have an out of office message, right? But you just got to educate, guys. You just got to educate your connections and teach them to respect your time, because it's great. I have 2 kids that are demanding mommy, daddy, but to have and allow other people into your life so closely to always want your time, that really was it was a struggle for me to really shift from that, because I was so used to my kids and interruptions in my day. So it threw me off. So that's why I wanted to have you now, especially with everybody who's probably at home and can't escape. It's easy to get sloppy. We do have a question here from Ted Snyder. I know he's read your book. I consumed it voraciously. He's asking, what is the best way to make sure you finish out all 12 weeks instead of stopping at week 10, 5, or 2? Like, let's say you had a lot of things go sideways and now you're like, I just should start over. How do you go all the way through?
Yeah, great question. Because there is this tendency, if I'm in week 6 or 7 and things get derailed, right, it feels like, boy, it'd be better just to start fresh. The truth of the matter is, if you do that, what happens is you start to train yourself to bail on it. And so we never give up on a 12-week year. We don't go back and reset the goal. We may adjust tactics as the marketplace tells us what's working and what's not working, but we don't abandon the goal. And so there's a discipline to staying with it that you just have to decide up front. I'm going to run this 12 weeks and I may stumble in the middle of it. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about last week because I can't do anything about last week. I'm going to focus on this week. So if week 7 went to hell and I'm in week 8, I'm not going to get all twisted about over week 7. I'm just going to go, you know what? I lost a week. I can't do anything about that. I can learn from it and make sure that I'm productive this week. So just pick it up wherever you're at, and run it through to the end, and then celebrate the progress. Because even in a 12-week year where you don't hit the goals, there's progress being made. There's learning that's happening. There's insights you're gaining about your tendencies and what it takes to get you to work on the things that matter most. And that really is, that's really the core of success, is understanding what it takes for you to do the things that are uncomfortable and do the things that on a consistent basis that are really going to drive your success. And so every time you bail on that, it just makes it that much easier next time to bail on it. So just make the commitment up front that, look, I'm going to run it. I don't care how disastrous it is. I'm going to run it out to the end. And when the clock runs out at the end of week 12, I'm going to look back and I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to gain insights from that. And I'm going to celebrate whatever. At least I'm going to celebrate the fact that I finished it. If nothing else, I finished it. And there's a lot of good things that come out of that. So I think that, Lois, is more really just a mindset that says, look, I'm not going to let myself off the hook. I'm not going to bail.
It's about the journey, right? Not the destination.
Yeah.
And then, because I tell that to people all the time, like the first 12-week year, a lot of people put pressure on themselves. So guys, just give yourself grace and love and compassion, and know that it's like the first 5K I ever did. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was committed I did it and I learned from it. And then I went out and did it again and I got better. So
Right,
I
right.
love your three components of the book too. Speak to what you just said: commitment, accountability, and greatness in the moment. Can you speak to that a little bit? And then we're getting more questions in. So I hope you're okay on time.
Yeah,
Just let
yeah,
me
I'm
know.
good. I'm good.
Okay.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, so there's 5 disciplines which we talked about: the vision, the planning, process control, scorekeeping, time use. There's also 3 principles that are really more character based, that are the fundamentals of success in life. And it's accountability. It's this notion of accountability, not as consequences, but as ownership.
Mm,
That excuse me, that ultimately you have free will choice, and taking ownership of your goals and your actions and your situation, because that's when you're going to be in the best possible position to influence in a way that is productive and yields the results you're after. The notion of commitment is closely tied to that. That's this notion of, following through on the things I say I'm going to follow through on. And with the 12-week year, we look at commitments on 2 levels. First is the personal commitments I make to myself. I'm going to work out, spend time with my family, make my sales calls, whatever it is. And then there's commitments I make to others. And so just getting more effective on those 2 levels, we get more of what we want in life. And then the third principle is greatness in the moment. And that's the notion, this realization that really life is lived in the moment, that's really all we have. A minute ago exists as a memory. The future's not here. Where life is lived is in the moment. And this notion of greatness in the moment is the realization that if I'm great in the moment, it'll show up in my results. Sometimes we think that the results themselves are what define greatness or what create it. Right. I would argue Michael Phelps didn't become great when he won his 22nd gold medal. I don't know how many he's won, 21, 22, something like that. Right. But it happened years before that, when he decided to do the things he needed to do, that those results are just the confirmation of it. And why? Because we don't control the outcomes. We control the actions. So in the moment, am I taking the actions that I know I need to take in order to create the life I want to live? Physically, am I doing the things to be healthy? Mentally, am I doing the things to manage, my mindset? From a business standpoint, am I doing the things in my business or in my career to get me where I want to be? We talk about, hey, if you want to predict the future, look to your daily actions. You want to know what your health is going to be like 3 years from today? Look to your daily actions. You want to know what your relationships are going to be like 3 years from today? Look to your daily actions. You want to know what your income, your career is going to be like 3 years from today? Look to daily actions, because that's what's creating your future.
that's so powerful. I love this stuff. We could go all day. I've got another question, and this actually kind of goes back to the history. I'd like you to explain the first name of the book was not the 12-week year, right? It was something else. So one of the questions was, what has evolved for you, Brian, since this first was published? So I think it'd be kind of fun for you to take them a little bit in a Cliff Notes version on that journey and what's evolved for you since you first published it.
Yeah. So interestingly, Michael and I were going to a conference where we were going to be a vendor, and we were thinking about, what shiny pieces of paper do we want to hand out, kind of stuff. And I had been thinking about writing a book and talked to some ghost authors and didn't like that process. And so I said to Michael, I said, look, let's just write a short format book. Let's leave out all the fluff. We'll just self-publish it. So we wrote the precursor to 12-week year. It was called Periodization, 12 Weeks to Breakthrough. We wrote it in 12 weeks. We went down to Kinko's, and the big gamble was, do we print 50? Do we print 100? We didn't want to bring any back. So we gambled and printed 100 and went to the show. And I think we sold them for like $10 a piece, and we sold out of them. And over the next couple of years, we sold a couple 100,000 copies of that book. And then we got introduced to Wiley, and Wiley said, okay, we want to publish that thing. And so when they did, they gave us an opportunity to expand it a little bit. They actually wanted a bigger book than we created. And we said, look, you guys don't get it. That's why the book sells, because it's a quick read. So the current book, if you look at it, has 2 sections. The first, I think 64 pages is much like the original thesis. That was the whole book in the past. And then the back half is a deeper dive. And so we published that. It went New York Times bestseller on my wife's birthday, June 9th, which was kind of fun. And
Awesome.
yeah. And it continues to sell year in and year out. It's kind of an anomaly in that most books peak about 18 months out. Ours continues to sell more. And I think it's because we didn't sit down and theorize something. We wrote about what we were doing with our clients. So we had worked with these concepts. We had tested them in the marketplace. We culled out what didn't work, and we just documented what we were doing that worked. And I think that's why the book resonates. And I think that's why it's so effective. I mean, it's the core of our business. And now we're working on our next book with Wiley. Again, they've contracted with us, and it'll be on accountability.
Oh, I love accountability. I know you talked about it's ownership. It's not a lot of people think accountability.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
But I'm excited about that. You shifted my paradigm on that, because a lot of people are scared of that word, and I've always loved it. I think because I've always had a coach. I was always an athlete, and I always was like, I want to be better. So let me, I'll come back to that other thought that I had, but someone asked a great question. I believe this is Christy. Getting started is the hardest part. What suggestions do you have to get started and sticking to the 12-year plan?
Yeah. So whether it's the 12-week year or anything, I agree. Starting is really hard. So here's what I talk about. Separate starting from finishing. It's like, let me give you an analogy. Let's say you want to get on the treadmill, but you think about, geez, I don't want to be on that thing for half an hour. Don't think about finishing. Just go stand on the treadmill and see what happens. Right? I want to write a book. Well, just carve out an hour to write. Whether you write a sentence or you write pages really doesn't matter. Right? Just start. And so don't get all hung up on the journey and how far you have to go and what it's going to take to finish it. Just focus on the starting part of it. That's the best way to start. Just figure out one step you can take. And so with the 12-week year, it might be, if you've read the book, it might be, building your vision. It might be building out your first plan. It might be, getting the power pack that we offer with videos, whatever it is. Just figure out step one and take step one, and then figure out step two. And know that early on, all you're going to experience is the pain of change. You're not going to experience a lot of benefits early on. And that's why most people give up, because the expectation is our whole society is geared to what I want it and I want it now. and
gratification, yeah.
Worthwhile in life takes effort. There's it takes a significant amount of effort. So it's not one of those things that I put in time today and there's immediate benefits to it. Hang on just a second. Someone walked in the office. You're gonna have to come back. Yeah, thanks. Sorry. I'm in the office. I'm alone. But,
they need you. They need your time. I get it.
Yeah.
We're so appreciative of having you here.
So realize that, look, when you start down a path of whether it's the 12-week year or certainly achieving goals that you haven't achieved before, you're going to have to take these actions that are going to be uncomfortable because they're different. And so early on, all you experience is the pain of change and there's no results. And you got to stay with it long enough to where the results start to come online and become self-reinforcing. That's why your comment earlier, Lois, about, hey, the first 12 weeks was kind of hard, but then I learned some things and I applied it to the next 12 weeks and the next 12 weeks. And so just be ready for the discomfort that comes with change and know that that's kind of the early sign that's good. Things are changing. When we feel that discomfort, we want to reconcile it. And one of the ways to reconcile it is you kind of bail from it. And that's really unproductive. If you sit with it, we call that productive tension. That's where that discomfort starts to work in your favor. But there's a mindset that goes along with that says, okay, I understand this is going to be comfortable. The fact that I'm feeling it now is a good sign because it means I'm leaning into it. And I'm not afraid of that. It's part of the process. I understand it and I'm going to stick with it. And then as the results come online, whether it's increased income in your business, whether it's a few pounds lost, whether it's, you're laughing more in your relationships, whatever that is, that starts to become self-reinforcing then.
Well, you talked about a lot of the similar things that it reminds me of Zig Ziglar. You don't have to be great to start. You just got to start to become great. And the compound effect also gives great examples on health and wealth. It's really, again, I said it earlier, it's a journey, you guys. Chris Cucina, one of my coaching clients, asked, sometimes I struggle to stay on track with the goals I set for myself, even when I look at my vision. And I encourage them to look at their vision daily. Do you have any advice on how to stay on track when things aren't going the way you think they should?
Yeah, it's a great question because it really is hard, right? When you're out there slugging away and nothing's happening, it's really easy to get discouraged. And I went through a really difficult time years ago when we literally lost everything. And I remember I talking to a friend of mine. He actually was my boss back years ago when I worked for a consulting firm. And I said to Paul, I said, Paul, it's even hard for me to dream about a better future because I'm so in the mud right now. And he said, Brian, you can't stop dreaming. When you stop dreaming, everything's over. And so, a lot of what we talk about in the 12 year is connecting your daily actions to that longer term vision. And that's why you have to have a plan that's tactical, because staying on track with your goals isn't about the outcomes, it's about the actions. And for so many people, their plans aren't tactical. So it's really hard to connect what I'm doing daily to the life I want to live and hitting that goal. When I have a tactical plan now I start to envision and see myself taking these actions, taking them consistently, taking them effectively, and connecting them to the things I want in life. So whether it's a new sports car, whether it's a new home, whether it's a family vacation, a trip to Europe, whatever that is, I connect the actions to that. You were an athlete, right? When you think about, if all you thought about was the drudgery of the workouts, you're going to quit working out. But when you thought about workouts, whether you knew it or not, is you immediately connected to how you wanted to perform in the event. You saw yourself getting the medal. You saw yourself crossing the finish line. That's what I'm talking about. As you understand what are the critical tactics, what are the critical actions to see yourself doing those, connecting those to the end result that you want, especially when it's not going the way you want it to. The other thing I would say about a tactical plan is if it's not going your way, you'll know specifically which actions are working and which ones aren't. So you're able to make smaller adjustments more frequently, which is how the 12-week year accelerates your success. But again, if you don't have a tactical plan, you can't do that. So if you're kind of wondering, hey, what's he talking about with tactics? Go back to the 2 chapters in the book and really look at that because it's critical.
So critical. And your book, I'm curious if you can, because I know you guys do coaching and I also do sales success coaching, and I have multiple coaches, talk about your book, accountability and what that looks like. Because to be honest with you, I know I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for your book and very, very powerful, accountable coaches.
Yeah, it's interesting because most people equate accountability with consequences because that's how they've experienced it, right? They've had people hold them accountable, which usually means they've created some sort of negative consequence when we've underperformed or when we've done something wrong. And you hear it in society. You can go to any newscast or pick up any paper or anything like that. And somewhere in there, you're going to hear about somebody talking about holding someone accountable. And it's always in a negative context. It's about what they did wrong and how we're going to punish them. So we've got that mindset. And yet inherently, I think we know that if I'm going to be successful, I got to be accountable. But there's this loud noise saying no, accountability is punishment. And so really helping people understand and demystify what accountability is, it's not about consequences at all. Accountability is really about ownership. It's this notion that we have free will choice and that you always have choice, regardless of the circumstances. And I'm not saying that we all have the same choices. I'm saying you always have choice. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he was in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. And he talked about that very concept, how they could strip you of everything, but you still had a choice of whether they stripped you of your dignity or not. And whether you chose to live and carry on or you surrendered to it. And so even in the most dire circumstances, you still have choice. And that's really what accountability is. It's recognizing that I have choice and then taking ownership of those choices. And so I stopped looking outside of myself. I stopped waiting for things to change. Who knows when this COVID thing's going to be over, but I don't control that. So what I do control is in that environment, what are the things I can do to still be successful? What do I need to do to be healthy? What do I need to do to build my relationships? What do I need to do to build my business? How do I serve more? How do I show up in a way that is relevant and meaningful for people?
Yeah, you're almost making me think of personal accountability is also personal responsibility. I love that, choosing from your highest and best good also is not easy when you have all these things swirling around you. But if you go inside, that's reflection every day. If you can reflect on this kind of stuff every day and watch this episode again, guys, I'm going to be uploading it here in iTunes. It'll be in YouTube forever. So you guys can come back and grab some of this. I know you have a gift. I don't see any other questions, guys. If you have any other questions, otherwise we're going to start wrapping it up. But I wanted to let them know that they can actually get your book. If you haven't gotten your book already, hopefully you haven't already been on Amazon while you've been on here. But you can go to, thank you, Brian, so much for your generosity on this discount. You guys can go to this website, 12weekyear.com/book. And there's a promo code specific to my podcast, and it's HWW, which again stands for Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And how long will that promo code be good for?
How long do you want it good for? A week? We can leave it up to a week.
A week is good. Let's go for a week. So and actually, how about through a week through Friday? Because this will be coming into iTunes on Friday. So you guys have a full week. And then we're actually going to be doing a joint webinar. So today was kind of like a great introduction, a teaser, give you guys some more information. And then on September 29th, we're actually going to be doing a webinar, Finish the Year Strong. And it's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So it's free. And if you guys aren't already, I'm going to be, I don't have a landing page up for it yet. That's going to happen here soon in the next week or two. If you're inside of my Healthy and Wealthy and Wise Facebook community, you'll hear all about it. You can register on that landing page inside of that group. And I'll also email it out to those of you that are on my email list. Is there anything else you want to share with us today, Brian, that is you think, gosh, these guys really need to know this, finishing out the year strong?
Yeah, the one thing I think that's really important is you are capable of more than you know. And it's not about you stepping up and being a superstar. It's about you doing the daily mundane, because it's not the sexy things that really create the success in life, and yet we're led to believe that. We're led to believe that success should be overnight, that the success curve is straight up, and it's all these fun things. The real success is doing the daily mundane, right? If you want to build wealth, you have to spend less than you make and invest the difference. If you want to be healthy, you can't go from the South Beach diet to paleo to keto. You have to exercise regularly, daily. And any area of your life, it's pretty much the same, whether it's your business, your health, your relationships. It's about being clear on the things that really drive success, and then just being consistent with them, not being perfect, right? Give yourself some grace. The 12-week year is a guilt-free zone, but just know that you're capable of so much more if you focus in and you commit to taking the action and you just be more consistent with it.
Consistency, so key, so key. And you kind of already, I always like to finish out with my signature question. So it almost sounds like you were in tune with what I was going to ask, Brian. But since my show is called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, and that has a tremendous amount of meaning for me, because like you were sharing earlier, I fell on hard times. I lost everything, and my health was also lost. And for me, that was the most valuable thing. And it took me like 5 years to recover from all of that. And I know there's a lot of people hurting right now, going through different kinds of trauma. And when you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, what does that mean for Brian Moran?
Well, that's kind of core to my life. For me, I'm faith-based. So everything starts there. And it's about really having routines to stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. So for me, I start my day with prayer and meditation. There's something I'm listening to every day that is encouraging me, that I'm gaining wisdom from. I've got tactics in my plan about working out at least 4 times a week. I'm building my business. So yeah, when I put a plan together, it addresses all of those areas, all 3 of those areas. There's always something around my health. There's something about me growing in wisdom and growing in relationships. And there's something about me having a bigger impact and growing my business and growing my income.
Awesome. Wow, I know I've learned so much today. Someone had asked me, what have I learned today? And I can't even answer that question. I've got to like digest and go through this and listen again and take copious notes. Thank you so much. I look forward to having that webinar with you again, September 29th, guys. Put it on your calendar. And you can also subscribe to my email list at healthyandwealthyandwise.com, so you'll get the information on how to register for that amazing event. And go ahead and make sure, if you haven't already, go to the 12weekyear.com/book. You have until a week from Friday with the promo code. Saves you $5 off. So every penny counts right now. So I appreciate you, Brian. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this special edition. Again, my name is Lois Koffi. Until next time, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, refer a friend, and please drop me a rating or a review. If you do that, I'll reward you with a free 20-minute free coaching session on crafting your journey to your best self. Reach out to me at loiskoffi.com to claim your 20-minute slot. Until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.